Is the PS Portal worth buying in 2025? Well, let's get into it. Hello everyone, it's Aidan here from Push Square, and yes, over the last near 18 months I have been using this thing here, the PlayStation Portal. This is a device that I didn't entirely see the point of when it was first announced. A lot of people queried that use case when they were really looking for a dedicated handheld device, and that price point, it seemed a little high at points considering that without Wi-Fi, this is just a hunk of plastic. But it's now been quite some time and I have accrued dozens of hours playing this thing. I've completed a handful of games on it. So with that mileage, what am I thinking about this device now? The build quality, the gaming experience, and how the device has evolved over that time with various feature updates. Before we get started, remember to subscribe to the channel if you're in the market for more PlayStation video content just like this. But anyway, let's get into the basics of the PS Portal. The PS Portal is a remote play device, meaning you need a Wi-Fi connection to use it. You can't just download games and play them offline on the PS Portal. What this means is that your Portal will connect to the internet, and your PS5 also has to be connected to the internet, so you can then remote play your games from the PS5 to the Portal. If activated, you can turn your PS5 on via your Portal if the PS5 is in rest mode. Now, a common misconception is that you need to be connected to the same home Wi-Fi network to play the PS Portal. That's just not the case. No, you could literally be anywhere in the world and it could still work if you had a decent enough connection. I once played about an hour of a game with no real issue when the PS5 was back home in Scotland and I was in a hotel in Germany. Secondly, yes, you do need your PS5 to be on to actually play the PS Portal, at least remotely. So you can't play the PS Portal while someone else plays the PS5, and this also applies when regarding cloud streaming, which we'll get into later. Moving on to the design and hardware, the PS Portal is, in my opinion, still the most comfortable handheld out there. Basically a DualSense controller with a surprisingly great 8-inch LCD touchscreen in between. This device has haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, built-in speakers, microphone, and a 3.5mm audio jack. It comes now in various colours including the standard white, midnight black, and there is even a limited edition 30th anniversary design, which is the one I've been rocking. Does it look great? Honestly, I really like the design. I've not got a case, so the whole hook of the DualSense handles is a bit of a concern if you're putting it in your bag, but I personally quite like the look of it. All of this is going to cost you the pretty wee price of £200 here in the UK, which is a lot when you could shell out for a dedicated handheld device like the Nintendo Switch Lite for basically the same price, maybe even cheaper, or the Steam Deck for around £350. We'll get into price in a bit because first off I want to talk about what it's actually like to play games on this thing remotely, because that's the way that I have primarily used this device. Where I spend a lot of my time playing the PS Portal is here, in bed, with the same Wi-Fi connection roughly 20 feet away from my PS5. In these conditions, I've very rarely had any issue. It connects to the PS5 quickly, the connection is strong, the image looks great, and the battery life. You're going to get about 4 hours of play through the battery here, which has always been more than enough for me, and the device charges quite quickly via USB-C, so if you ever really need a pickup, you can charge while you're playing or just take a wee break. And while this not being a dedicated device is an issue for some people, it does have its benefits, namely the lack of fan sounds and overheating. I've had some real issues with the Steam Deck in the past because it's so loud and gets so hot. But that's not any kind of issue with the Portal, and the games you'd play don't necessarily dictate the battery either like it would on something like the Steam Deck. Things do start to get interesting when you go further afield. I've had times where I've went round to my parents' place, both locations have pretty decent Wi-Fi, yet still it takes an age to boot up the PS5 from rest mode, and the connection can be quite rough when it starts out, almost like it needs to warm itself up before things start to improve. But then on the contrary to that, I've had plenty of times even further afield where I've had next to no issue at all. I once spent an entire afternoon playing The Crew Motorfest on my phone's hotspot about 150 miles away from my PS5 with zero lag, zero resolution dips. Absolutely perfect play experience, and it doesn't even use up that much data either. I've also had the issue of automatic downloads and updates on my PS5, which nearly immediately tags my connection to the Portal and has at times even locked me out of the connection. That's all to say that your experience with the Portal is going to be entirely dictated by the kind of internet that you have access to. Sometimes it can be really great with really strong connections, other times it can be incredibly patchy. Whenever I go further afield, I use my PS Portal as like a nice addition. I never really assume that it's definitely going to work. But in my situation, whenever I take my PS Portal out, it's more like a weekend away somewhere where I never really know what the signal or Wi-Fi situation is going to be. But if you're taking your Portal to the same reliably connected to the internet location, then it's a different kind of situation. Maybe you're taking it to your work, maybe you're going over to a friend's house or whatever, and you know that it's going to work. Yeah, things are different then. So say you have a decent connection, everything's working fine. What is the actual play experience like? I've had a lot of fun with a lot of different games when playing the Portal, and the controls always feel tuned in, haptics and adaptive triggers are surprisingly synced up, and the LCD screen looks fantastic. It caps out at 1080p and 60 FPS, but it's the perfect size, making everything quite readable. I played a text-heavy game like Disco Elysium on it before with no issues. The grips on this thing make it really easy to play over extended sessions. I've said before that devices like the Nintendo Switch and their controller designs don't really work for me. They're not very ergonomic, and I actually get hand cramping quite a lot of the time. But that's just not the case with the PS Portal. It's just like holding a DualSense controller. I played quite a nice variety of games, I'd say, with everything from Final Fantasy VII Remake to Humanity, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt to Diablo 4. I still personally wouldn't choose to play a more rapid response time game like Fortnite or Call of Duty. That's when the remote play lag or sluggishness is felt, in my opinion. Now, it's totally doable, and like, it's down to you. If you want to play those games, you 100% can on this device. I just typically play those speedier sort of games on my, at my desk with a 1 millisecond response time display. So it's not really for me. Now, the most disappointing, yet maybe somewhat understandable omission from the PS Portal is the lack of Bluetooth connectivity. For those that wear wired headphones, it doesn't make a difference. You've got that 3.5mm audio jack on the underside. It's perfect for that if that's the kind of headphones you use. But for me, I like to use wireless headphones, and your only real solution there is to buy Sony's official headsets and earphones like these little buds here, which set me back another £200. Sony is using this PlayStation Link technology, which, word on the street, will give you more synced up audio. Now, there are cheaper options like the Pulse Elite, not exactly cheap, just cheaper, which you can use with the PS5, and these sync up really quickly. They do have that Sony ecosystem appeal, but yeah, it's not an ideal situation in my mind, especially if you've got a cracking pair of wireless headphones already, like my Sony InZone H9s. They don't connect to this device. However, there is obviously the issue of audio lag when using Bluetooth, so I kind of get it in some way. It's just not ideal. Now, something we haven't spoken about is how this device has evolved since its launch. Sony has been fairly consistently pumping out quality of life improvements to the PS Portal regarding things like stream quality, UI, sound, Wi-Fi options, and built-in PS5 features. One of the biggest though was the inclusion of cloud streaming. For a lot of people, this has vastly improved the money to value proposition of the Portal, since you no longer need your PS5 to be connected to the internet and on rest mode and all of that for it to actually work. You just need an internet connection supplied to the Portal. Oh, and the £120 PS Plus premium subscription, yeah, that's needed to unlock this feature too. The price might sting, but it does have some interesting value. For one, a fairly extensive library of games that can be streamed directly to your Portal. This includes the likes of The Last of Us Part 1, Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but maybe more interestingly for some, a collection of PS1 and 2 games. All of these games and more are available via your regular PS5 too, so you're not really just buying it for the Portal on its own. And with the help of cloud saves, you could in theory play some Hogwarts Legacy on your PS5 and then pick up the save with your PS Portal and vice versa. It's a neat new feature that kind of diversifies the device's possibilities. Maybe you're someone that doesn't like to leave a device plugged in back at home when it's not accessible to you, and this new update kind of unleashes the Portal in a way. So that brings us back to that big old question: is the PS Portal worth buying in 2025? As a naysayer of this product when it was first announced, to someone that was impressed by launch, but even more impressively still using it to this day, I'm of course in the camp that the PS Portal is worth buying in 2025 if you're the kind of person that would actually benefit from its use. I do think it's an excess for someone like me who primarily just uses it to play a chill out game before bed, in bed. But for a lot of people with kids, let's say, that hog the TV or jobs that require you to wait around quite a bit, I think the Portal is a really worthwhile expansion of the PlayStation ecosystem. And that mention of ecosystem is a big argument point for those maybe considering dedicated devices like a Switch or a Steam Deck. All totally viable options, but if you're a big PlayStation gamer with a ton of games, all your trophies, all your friends, etc. on this profile, it just expands your PS5 rather than you having to effectively start from scratch with another platform. Granted, I do think you would actually get more value for money with the Steam Deck depending on how into modding and emulating you are. I mean, you can even remote play your PS5 from the Steam Deck, but it really depends on what you are looking for from a handheld device. Is this device the platform itself, or is it just an extension, a way to play games you're already playing on PlayStation, just portably? I do still think that the £150 price point would have been more appealing than the $210, but there's no denying that you are getting a really handy device with the PS Portal that's got one of the most comfortable designs in the handheld space. With a decent connection, you're getting an impressively smooth gameplay experience, and it's only managed to improve itself ever since its launch, making the PS Portal a much more inviting proposition now than it was when it released in 2023. I recently made a pretty similar video based around the PS5 Pro, which you can check out, but in that I said I kind of struggled to definitively say whether it was worth it because I hadn't actually paid for the device. And while that was the case when the PS Portal came out, I have since actually bought my own model with my own money with the 30th anniversary edition, so I can a lot more confidently recommend this product. Like any Sony device, it's not mandatory, none of these things ever really are, but if you've got a decent internet connection, you've got a nice wee collection of games on your profile, maybe you've even got a PS Plus premium subscription, then in those instances, you've got plenty of use cases that make the PS Portal more than worth your money in 2025. Thank you everyone for checking out the video. Let me know what you're thinking down in the comments below. And while you're there, remember to subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content just like this. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.